Medieval medicine is a fascinating topic indeed. While many of us are familiar with strange medieval practices such as bloodletting and bizarre medieval surgeries, I am more eager to discuss folk practices, beliefs, and traditions that brought the medieval world to life. Herbal and plant-based medicinal recipes were already long in practice, so the idea that the people were completely uneducated and only prayed away illnesses isn't accurate at all. That said, folk beliefs permeated basic understanding for all sorts of maladies. The origins of diseases are typically suggested by the names of ailments, an example of this being elf-shot or elf-addle, which was another name for fever. Other common causes of diseases include anything from elf trickery, devil sickness, dwarfs, temptation by a fiend, and even mares that ride men at night. Yeah. There was also likely a tradition of healers known as leeches who shared and spread remedies, whether orally or through text. A lot of these remedies were also accessible and prescribed for the people to be able to do at home on their own. One interesting example of this comes from the Lacnunga, a collection of Anglo-Saxon medical texts and prayers. Here, instructions are given for a woman who is unable to carry a child to term. She is to go out and step over a man's grave 3 times while repeating a charm to prevent miscarriage. Once pregnant, she is yet again to recite a charm as she steps over her husband in bed. Once she feels her child moving, she is to announce it on the church altar. Fascinating indeed. Another interesting recipe comes from Bald's Leechbook for treating an infection of the end of the finger, usually commonly caused by splinters. This recipe calls for carving the patient's name on wood, filling the letters with his blood, and then throwing the wood back over the shoulder into running water such as a stream or whatnot. What is so interesting about this practice is the fact that it actually did end up working, because in carrying out the ritual, the infection was properly drained. This was the case with a lot of medieval rituals. Moving on to a Christian healing ritual, the instructions for treating a mentally disturbed patient was to have him drink ale from a church bell. This was done because demons flee the sounds of church bells. Seems logical. A lot of the English folk practices around the 14th and 15th century involved the belief that like cures like. This comes to life in a few intriguing examples of curative rituals. In a treatment to stop bleeding, for example, directions included collecting and hanging the herb sanguinaria around the neck. An ointment to make hair grow involves the use of willow, suggesting hair length. There are definitely some interesting pragmatics at work here. The use of the sanguinaria herb relies on the link between the name of the herb and blood, just like the use of the balding ointment stems from the link between willow and hair. The use of charms, amulets, and writing on objects in folk medical practices was extremely common. Saints' emblems, rings, and amulets with Christian writings and prayers were often used, and not just for supernatural purposes, but also for common illnesses, sickness, to aid in childbirth, or as a guarantee against an early death. While a lot of these folk remedies were largely tossed to the side for being irrational and as such ineffective, I think it is important to question that and challenge that based on 2 main reasons. A lot of the herbal remedies used in the past were effective due to the chemical properties involved and serve as medicine today, though they are much more evolved preparations, of course. Secondly, the power of placebo is astounding indeed. Whether we can make an intellectual argument for it or not, a lot of the times it did the job, and that's what matters. Especially when you didn't have anything better. Another thing that sticks out to me is a feel of community of sorts. When there was no professional help available, your best resource might be to turn to your local herbalist, a priest, the lady of the manor, or even a barely literate peasant villager. And that helped, because the world was a scary and dark place, hence the Dark Ages.